Character simulation, also known as char sim, character effects, CFX, technical animation, tech anim, and sometimes just cloth and hair sim, is a department at many animation and visual effects studios that I had no idea existed back when I was in school. If your experience was like mine, there were probably only 1 or 2 classes on the subject, if any, and the students graduating generally aren't aware that this is even an option for a full career path. Because of this, it turns out that character simulation is hugely in demand, not because it offers more jobs than other departments or isn't fulfilling, but because there just aren't that many artists out there applying for the positions. And despite me saying that, you'd still be surprised just how big these departments can get. Depending on the studio, the char sim department might be around double the size of the rigging department, and yet students graduating are much more likely to be seeking a job as a rigger than a job in simulation, and way more likely to be seeking a job as an animator. In fact, I'm pretty sure that a whopping 0 students in my entire graduating class were actively seeking a job in character simulation. So if you're struggling to break into the industry due to the thousands of animators and riggers competing for the same jobs as you, CharSim could be the in that you're looking for. Now, you may be thinking that these jobs don't necessarily align with your existing skill sets, or that you've already spent so much time developing career goals that you're passionate about, but if you hear me out, I think you'll come to see that CharSim just might be a lot more aligned with your skills and interests than you initially thought. I would argue that CharSim offers a very fulfilling opportunity that falls exactly halfway between animation and rigging, almost like a limited generalist. It's not quite as artistic as animation and not quite as technical as rigging, but it relies on skills developed by both those career paths. It's also, quite frankly, a lot easier to wrap your head around than either of those focuses, which means transitioning into CharSim with a decent pre-existing understanding of animation and rigging could be an extremely realistic short-term goal for you. Even if you're just starting out as a student, I think that character simulation could be a great career path to consider. It can be really fun, it's easier to grasp than you might think, and when studios visit your school and see that there are 50 animation hopefuls, 20 rigging hopefuls, and just a few CharSim hopefuls, there's a really good chance you're going to get that interview. So with all that being said, what exactly are character simulation artists responsible for? In a broad sense, they're responsible for taking what the animators publish and preparing it to be lit and rendered. This usually includes creating cloth and hair simulation rigs for characters that need it, installing them into shots, adjusting the settings until the cloth and hair resolves nicely, and then performing what is known as shot finaling or post-work, or sometimes just technical animation or tech anim. Essentially, this finaling step is just you using your technical know-how to deform the geometry in the scene to match exactly what the art directors want, since sometimes the animation rigs and cloth and hair simulations don't get there on their own. And that's pretty much it. So in this series, we're going to cover basically this entire pipeline from beginning to end. Of course, every studio you go to is going to have their own interpretation of it, but there are only so many ways you can import and export geometry caches and install simulation rigs, so you'll find that the vast majority of the pipelines out there operate very similarly between studios, especially ones that rely on Maya. As far as I can tell, this is the only proper character simulation training series out there at the time that I'm recording this. There are a few dedicated how to use NCloth and how to use NHair videos, but those are fairly isolated skills, and in this series we will cover both of those, but you'll also get a complete overview of common industry pipelines, how to create reusable sim rigs both through reference swapping and cache-based approaches, and some shot finaling tricks that you can use even in vanilla Maya. I'm hoping this series can provide a more thorough understanding of a corner of the industry that is far more in demand than the animation jobs many students focus on right now. Either way, it's a great skill to have, even if you just want to pick up a freelance gig here and there, or push your personal animation projects out of the realm of glued-on clothes and keyframed ponytails. I think you'll find there's a lot to gain here. And just to nail the point home, I am not being hyperbolic when I say that with just a few hours of training, someone with mild to moderate animation and/or technical skills can absolutely learn everything they need to know to make an amazing reel and break into a major studio. I've seen it happen multiple times. Animation is a tiny industry, but the character simulation corner of it is so much bigger than the few students who have taken notice of it. So if applying for a job at your dream studio that is probably less than 10% of the applicants that the animation or rigging job you're eyeing does sounds appealing, you should probably buy the rest of this training series if you haven't already. And I'll see ya in Chapter 2.